It's becoming clear the Reds may not be the big spenders we had hoped they were going to be this offseason. We'll tell you why that is, and we'll tell you why they can still get their man for the outfield without breaking the bank. We've got that for you on today's Locked On Reds.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Reds. My name is Jeff Carr. His name is Steve Offenbaker, and we are lifelong Cincinnati Reds fans that have been podcasting for this team for a combined 12 years about the Cincinnati Reds, and I've been doing it on a daily basis for basically all of 6 years now into my 7th offseason. Steve joined me a few years ago, and we're crazy about these Reds, and we want to bring them to you each and every day. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team, your Cincinnati Reds, every single day. And Locked On Reds is for the Reds fan that knows what happened. They want to know why. And on today's show, we're going to explain why the Reds may not be the big spenders that we hope they could be. Let's face it, they weren't going to be Daddy Warbucks by any stretch of the imagination at the winter meetings, but we were hoping for a little bit of something. They're not even really going to do that either. We'll explain why. We're also going to look at the DH position, the worst position, at least according to productivity at the plate for the Reds last year, by far. How does it get better? Well, hopefully just by law of averages for as horrible as they were. We'll explain in just a few minutes. And later on, we're going to look at what if the Reds were still playing right now. Maybe one day it won't be a what if, Steve. Maybe one day it will actually be a reality. We'll get to all of that coming up on today's episode. This is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB to get $20 off your first purchase. All right, Steve, we will begin today by looking at now another, and I hesitate to say report because report makes it feel dramatic as if this was the only thing that was said, but it is now the second mention of the fact that the Reds are just not gonna be that big a spender this offseason, as much as we might have done the math and thought that they would have had at least a decent chance of being somewhat big spenders.
Yeah, Gordon has weighed in, and if he had been the first person on this, I probably would have ignored it because I don't know that there's been a more negative Reds beat writer in the history of Reds beat writers than Gordon has been.
Are you saying that he's the Reds Bob Nightingale?
He is, in fact, the Reds Bob Nightingale. It's without question to me. But he's the second guy on this now. $100 million being the magic number. That is where they spent their previous round of spending. Both now Gordon and Mark Sheldon have said, don't look for them to really grow upon that. Don't look for them to break. Can't talk today, Jeff. Don't look for them to break the bank and move past that. Look for them kind of to hold what they got there. Which is pretty disheartening. And I know I can hear everybody in the comment section is going to be, well, what about our outfielder? What is that going to mean for our outfielder? You know, you and I were talking about this during prep before we clicked record today. And I still think, Jeff, and tell me if you agree or disagree with this, but I still think both things can be true. They can not be big spenders in the offseason, but they can still go and get that outfielder. And where they find that money is with the non-tenders and the opt-outs of the contracts. I do not anticipate that Nick Martinez is going to be back with this team. They save money there. I do not anticipate that they are going to keep Ty France around. They save that money there. You've already been loud and jumping up and down that they shouldn't keep Espinal. That's another $4 million there. If there's a mutual option on Junis right now, yeah. If one or both of them decide, no, we're going to go test the market, that's 4 guys that you've cut right there. They could take that money and spend it on an outfielder and still be at somewhere around $85 million in payroll for 2025, which is well below where they were in that magic $100 million mark.
Well, and the 85 that you just mentioned includes spending big on an outfielder because
yes, that's what I mean. They could go sign their outfielder and still be at about $85 million. And and be well below league average, and be, $15 million short of that $100 million mark. And this all comes back to what I said yesterday. Gordon seemed to lean into it a little bit in his article that was out. Seemingly he listened to the show. Thanks for listening, Gordon. Get a little more positive, my man. That this all is being fueled by the uncertainty around the TV rights revenue and what is going to happen with Bally Sports and whatever its replacement looks like.
We're going to hear about that a lot this offseason because it's nowhere near decided. I think the bankruptcy hearings have only just begun for Diamond Sports Group, the company that operated Bally Sports, now branded FanDuel Sports TV. But yeah, that is up in the air. Got to see what that means for the Reds. The other part of this equation that Gordon points out in his article is the fact that the gate was down 3% year over year from 2023 to 2024. And so that could be another bullet in the chamber when it comes to this argument that...
You mean attendance was down? It's almost like,
yeah, I know, it's shocking, right?
If you're winning and competing for a playoff spot for the final week of the season, people might actually come out to the ballpark.
Look, and you're not going to, I'm not using this as reasons why I agree with any not spending. These are reasons that the team will be using. The reason for the Reds to do this offseason the way that we have been saying it is because there is opportunity on the horizon. They will use this to tamp down expectations as to what they will actually do. But I still believe with you that they can go get a guy like Anthony Santander. And if they are turned off by the fact that he wants too many years on his deal, then they can go talk to Teoscar Hernandez. They may still be precluded from going after Juan Soto, but that doesn't mean that they can't go for tier 2. My worry is that they will almost cap themselves out at a guy like Tyler O'Neill, which, by the way, is still an upgrade, but it's not the upgrade that we're hoping for. And I think that there is definitely room for improvement in this free agent class when it comes to the outfielders, and I hope that they remain open with the guys that they've got, because as we have this graphic that I've been holding on to like a hoarder, we look at the guys who are under team control, the players who are just entering arbitration. I mean, we are just now seeing the first years of arbitration for a couple of different players. So you still have so much of this team under absolutely beautifully, nicely put for the team's cost control. And this is no better time to go fill the holes in free agency like you can aggressively, because here in a couple of years where you're going to have to start spending more money on Ellie De La Cruz and Matt McClain and Spencer Steer and Christian Encarnacion Strand and Andrew Abbott and all of those different guys, it's going to be real easy for them to explain why they didn't spend anything in free agency. So go do it now, because you ain't going to do it later.
So the numbers look like they're at about $60 million. Is that right, Jeff?
Yes.
And that,
when you consider all the guys that won't be here. Yes.
And that still takes into account them paying Junis and paying Espinal, correct? Or does that have those guys?
No, that is with them off the books. Junis is about $8 million that would come off the books. This also includes Nick Martinez. This includes no Ty France, no Espinal. There's one other one.
No Martinez, no Junis. So those 4 guys are not included in that $60 million.
Right. Yeah.
So that leaves about $25 million to get from 60 to 85. So $25 million might get you a decent outfielder for a year or so. If you're willing to
23.5 this year, so 25 would be reasonable.
Offer him 25, 26 million, couple year deal. I see that working. So I still think they can go get the outfielder. It doesn't feel far-fetched to me. And I think that both things can be true. But given that we've now seen 2 sources, they're not going over $100 million. They're not going to spend on an outfielder and then go get the bullpen and then go get and then go get and then go get. We're going to get one big move and they're going to be done. And maybe we'll be lucky and there'll be a Tyler Stevenson contract extension in addition to the outfielder.
And I think that the contract extensions should definitely be in the offing. I think that this precludes them from going out and signing multiple relief pitcher arms. Maybe they get a guy on a little bit of a prove it deal or something like that, but we're not going to see them spend big on that. And there's probably not going to be 2 outfielders. It's probably just going to be 1. And look, we are saying this to set the expectation. We want this to be wrong. We want them to go out and test the $123.5 million payroll that they set the franchise record for back in 2021. We want them to approach, even surpass that number. But what's most likely to happen, that is what we're talking about here, and that's what we want you to know, that based on the reporting we are seeing, they're not being takey about this. Both Gordon Whitmire and Mark Sheldon are saying don't expect the cash to be flowing out of Great American Ballpark this offseason, which means an interesting thing for the worst position on the field for the Reds in 2025. I don't think it's going to change all that much. We'll tell you why coming up next.
You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. You can get your MLB tickets. You can get your NFL tickets, NBA, NHL. They have it all. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Now, Jeff and I have been telling you about this ad all season long. We both use this when we're down at GABP. We head over to the banks. We find a beverage. We find something good to eat. And then just before first pitch, we jump on the Game Time app. We get greatly discounted tickets. Buy those tickets and stroll across into the stadium to watch the old Redlegs. It is a great deal. And with that promo code Locked On MLB, you're going to get $20 off those already greatly reduced prices. You're not sure about the venue you're going to. They have the view from your seat, and you're going to know exactly what you're going to pay because they have all in pricing. Just download the Game Time app today and use that promo code Locked On MLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create your account over at Game Time. Redeem that code Locked On MLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. We're talking Cincinnati Reds baseball here today and every day, every week, every month, all year long, off season, regular season, spring training, God willing, postseason. We're going to be talking Reds during all of it, folks. Make sure you have subscribed. Jump down right now. Click that subscribe button. Click that notification bell. Click that like button. If you're listening to us in the audio feeds, make sure you have subscribed so that you don't miss an episode and you get at least 30 minutes of Reds talk each and every day. All right, Jeff, you alluded to this, and we talked about the DH position being the worst position for the Reds in 2024. And what we're talking about is offensive production. The Reds DHs were not good. They were pretty bad, in fact. And we had wondered privately, and maybe even on an episode or two, if that would change a little bit with Terry Francona coming in. But our cursory research has shown that Tito is just like all of the other managers in Major League Baseball, and the DH position is going to continue to be a quasi day off, get a guy out of the field, but still keep his bat in the lineup kind of situation for the most part in 2025. So that being said, the only thing that really is going to get the production up for DH is just guys are going to have better years, and hopefully Tito bringing in the discipline and Tito bringing in playing baseball the right way is going to lead to guys having more offensive production, thus helping this position not be the worst on the team.
Yeah, and there's a good chance that health will help this out a little bit. I mean, the Reds had so many different guys play at least one game. I mean, even Bubba Thompson got time at DH last year. Like, I don't remember that, and I'm glad that I don't. But Jamie,
I think we both blocked that out. I don't remember that either, but that sounds terrible. Let's not do that again.
What is it they said, like the trauma response or whatever? You just block that from your mind. Yeah, that's what it was. You had Jeimer Candelario play the most at 32 games. Nick Martini right behind him at 31 games, and a whole bunch of guys in between them in like 9 games. So I'm not going to list out the entire group of guys that did this, but according to Baseball Reference and one of our favorite stats to talk about, OPS plus, they compare the production of that position to the league average DH, and the Reds are 40% worse than the league average DH. By far the worst team in baseball when it came to that position.
Their OPS plus was 60 on the year.
compared to the rest of the league. Compared to the rest of the team, they were 71. But yeah, their OPS, Steve, 589. OPS on base plus slugging was 589 for the year. The DH slugged 326. The DH didn't slug as good as Jonathan India did, Steve.
That's pretty cringy. That's pretty cringy.
It's tough. And part of this is it's a strategy to use this as a half off day for most guys on the team. But I kind of feel like Terry Francona may at least whittle that down a little bit. There won't be like everybody is included here. He's going to be like, this guy flourishes in this spot. This guy doesn't. I think we're just going to leave him off the list. I think there'll be more discernment there.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. It's going to be about health. If he's rotating Matt McClain and Jonathan India and Jammer Candelario and maybe an occasional day for Ellie and Spencer Steer, so on and so forth, that's a lot better than rotating Nick Martini and Bubba Thompson and the corpse of Will Benson and
Mike Ford got 13 games at DH.
Mike freaking Ford, I mean, hopefully there's a better list of names rotating through this position in 2025, and that just automatically is going to elevate the thing a little bit. But yeah, the Reds, if they're going to be successful in 2025, that has to get better.
But it's an area that I kind of thought, based on the perceived payroll availability and things like that Nick Krall could address. And he has said in interviews with different people where he's just like, we're looking at everything. We're looking at how we can get better across the board hitting, how we can get better across the forward fielding, all that different stuff. So they're not ignoring the DH position, but it doesn't sound like they're going to actively search for a guy that is more DH focused. And that draws me back to an earlier take I had last year where I wanted the Reds to go trade for Brent Rooker. I think this precludes them from doing that. I don't necessarily believe they will go get a guy who is DH first and you play him in the field if you got to. And based on what the A's did with Brent Rooker, that is what you would have to do with him.
Yeah, they're not going to go get a DH, especially now with this revelation from both Mark Sheldon and Gordon over at the Inquirer that they're not going to expand the payroll by any leap and bound. So you're going to get an outfielder, and I think that's going to be it. You mentioned bullpen, and I don't even know that they're going to do that. You and I talked about that there was probably one spot they could go out and fill, but I think that may take care of itself in-house too, depending on what they do with Graham Ashcraft. So I really think it's going to be an outfielder, and that's it. And, I jokingly said yesterday, we're going to get better because everybody's going to get healthy and we'll see what we got. Turns out you don't
have to write the PR releases for Nick Krall.
Turns out that's what they're going to do. They're going to wait and see if everybody get healthy and they're going to, see what they got. And, yeah,
we were sarcastically writing that headline like 2 months ago, and we're just like, yep, just cue it up. CES, Matt McClain, healthy, off-season additions, might as well be the same thing, right? Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. I think that there will actually be some legitimate moves, but at the same time, we will hear that out of the Reds general manager. That will happen, whether it's closer to spring training, where most general managers do cite the health of their team and the fact that guys are coming in healthy and ready to go. So there'll probably be something along that lines, but I definitely believe if they continue to play Matt McClain in the outfield in Arizona, and they're going to look at that in spring training, that's going to be a headline. That's going to be a, look, we got our outfielder in this. So did we really need to go spend big? And that's why we got Tyler O'Neill instead of Teoscar Hernandez or, whatever it ends up being. There's definitely going to be that aspect of it, but I believe that all just harkens back to what Terry Francona does with the DH position, and what Terry Francona did with the DH position was pretty much what David Bell did with it and used it as a half off day.
Well, and we say that, right? That's what David Bell did with it, but that's what baseball's doing with it.
Right.
That's not a David Bell-ism. And I guess what I don't want to label Terry Francona with a David Bellism. I don't want to say that if he does something that David was doing, that it's necessarily a bad thing because it was something David was doing.
This is one of those areas Terry Francona
where
bingo that I have on Canva.
Yeah, no, we are not playing Terry Francona bingo. You knock it off right now.
He's better.
We're not doing that.
Much better than that.
But I just it's where the league is going. That's what baseball is doing right now. So it won't be. It's not a shocker. I was just curious, because Terry is a little more old school, right? So I was just wondering how he utilized the position. Turns out he utilizes it like everybody else.
And that was just the last 2 years. I mean, you go back to 2021 and 2020 and 2019, Franmil Reyes was their DH for the majority of the time, but part of that was they were trying to figure out who Franmil Reyes was. And you remember they kind of got rid of him, sent him to San Diego, and then he sort of fizzled out. So I think part of that just was them trying to figure him out and get his bat in the lineup. So maybe there's an element they could do that with Jonathan India. Maybe we could see that with Jeimer Candelario or some other guys like that. But I still think it's going to be a rotation. It's not going to be a featured guy.
Well, one thing's for sure. We're going to have a lot more to say about this as we get through the offseason. The offseason hasn't officially started. The Yankees are doing their level best right now as we record to make sure baseball ends today, but they have now recaptured the lead, Jeff, 6-5 out in LA or out in New York as we're recording. Hopefully there's another day of baseball, but we're gonna have a lot more to say as we get into the offseason about what the Reds do and don't do along the way. But listen, wouldn't it be fun if the Reds were still playing, Jeff? We're going to talk about what it would be like and how we would react. We're going to get into that coming up next.
You can't catch us on YouTube. You can always get us on your favorite audio podcasting app. Seriously, we're on them. If it's an audio podcasting app, Locked On Reds is there. Check it out today. Take us with you wherever you are. And Steve, you had mentioned it there right before we took a break that we have been watching this World Series. We've been watching this entire postseason. And thinking of it from a Dodgers fan's perspective or a Yankees fan's perspective, like right now, Dodgers fans feeling a lot better than the Yankees fans, but Yankees are still fighting. They're still clawing. I think probably given the recent history of our team, we would be more apt to be in the Yankees position where we're clawing our way back and looking like we're being left for dead. But the stress of it all is not lost on me in that I kind of want the stress right now. Like I'm watching baseball pretty carefree these days.
Listen, I'm not sure if you remember at all. You may not have been around for it, even the 1990 World Series. I think you just missed it, didn't you?
It was a little baby.
You're a little baby. So I was in middle school during the 1990.
I was not having a beer with my Skyline watching baseball back then.
The postseason run there in 1990, and I was a hot mess, and the Reds were playing really, really well. World Series baseball is just we've had so few cracks at it here in Cincinnati, and I know there's some of the old timers that listen that got to live in the Big Red Machine era. That the World Series was almost an expectation every year, and that's not been our experience. The thing with Reds fans and Cincinnati sports fans in general, Jeff, is we're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. We're always waiting for whatever bad thing is going to happen, and we're always just waiting to see what the disaster is going to be. And there was a time, 70s, that wasn't the case for Cincinnati Reds baseball. I would love to be able to do this show during a postseason run, and hopefully that's coming for us in 2025 because this postseason it's been fun. There's been some fun baseball, and this World Series, look, don't mark me down. I've been very vocal with my anger about what the Dodgers did with manipulation of payroll and the spending of money and how I feel like they ruined the free agent market and all those things. And never have I ever been a Yankees fan in any way, shape, or form. But this has been fun watching these two teams slug it out. And while the Dodgers jumped up to a 3-0 lead, the Yankees are doing their level best to be a team of firsts. Garrett Cole, as I'm recording, looking over here on my monitor, just left after 108 pitches with a 1-run lead. The Yankees hold that and win this game, they will become the first team in World Series history to go 0-3 and then force a game 6. So this is fun baseball right now.
Okay, the only guy on the Reds roster that would be anywhere near the ability to give up 5 runs, which they weren't his fault. It was the defense of the Yankees that really failed him.
Oh, they disappeared.
They just completely gave up on him there for a minute, and they lost the lead. But is there anybody? I think Hunter Green's the only guy close. But if Hunter Green gives up 5 runs in an inning, earned or not, is he coming back out the next? I don't think that's happening. I think Garrett Cole is a singular individual there.
If David Bell was still managing this team, there'd be 0% chance.
He wouldn't have finished the inning. He would not have finished the inning.
Terry Francona is a little bit of a different beast, and I think uses his gut more. And I could see a scenario where Francona is going to let Reds pitchers work through big problems in big moments. And
I'm kind of excited about that for Hunter Green, because I feel like Hunter's got that edge that he's just not been able to show, because anytime he gets into a situation where you can show that edge, it's like, no. We got Suter ready. Suter's ready. You're coming out.
And to your point, in addition to Hunter Green, I think that's something that Andrew Abbott could do. He could have a bad inning like that and come back out and be okay.
We've seen him do that.
I think we've seen him do that. So I think both of those guys could be like that. But just watching this postseason, Jeff, it really just makes me hungry for a Reds postseason appearance. Oh, yeah. I mean, and more so than in recent years. You know, we've talked about that. You and I, we bought into a little bit of the hype heading into the 2024 baseball season. I really thought this Reds team could be a playoff team, and maybe if the pitching had held up, we'd be having a different conversation, and maybe they would have made the postseason. But I really need for the Reds to be in the playoffs. I'm all done with wait till next year. I want to watch the Reds on a postseason run, and all of the heart palpitations and gut clenching that come along with watching your team in the postseason. I want it. I'm here for it.
Yeah, I definitely don't even consider 2020. I mean,
you know what? And Bob Castellini had the audacity to correct the guy before Jason Williams.
Paul Daugherty, yeah. To correct Doc and say, oh, no. Remember, this team was in the postseason in 2020, and no, that doesn't count. Count. That's like going to Skyline, sitting down, then putting a plate in front of you, and then telling you they're out of noodles, chili, and hot dogs and buns, and so you might as well just leave, because that's all that was. The Reds didn't score. They looked rough. I mean, there was good pitching, but they couldn't score, so it didn't matter. And that is what kills me the most. Is I almost would have rather there be a legitimate playoff drought, that they haven't been to the playoffs since 2013, rather than, oh well, they made it in 2020. It's like, no, they didn't. I'm blocking that out of my mind, because when I watch what's going on TV right now, that's so much fun. And the mess that I would be in right now, and the live shows that we would have every night after every game. Yeah. Oh my gosh, would we have just screamed in the mic for 20 minutes if Ellie De La Cruz hit a walk-off grand slam in Game 1 of the World Series? I think I would have.
I still wouldn't have been able to talk. I think that would be it. As notorious as you and I are at losing our voices at Bengals games, that would have definitely been a loss of voice moment. I'm here for it, Jeff. I think our time is coming. I know we say this all the time, and there are a lot of diehard folks that listen to us each and every day, and they're listening right now. And guys, I think it's coming. I think our patience and our loyalty to this team, I think we're going to get to experience postseason very, very soon, as early as next season. God willing, I hope it happens. I am so ready for it, Jeff.
Can't happen soon enough, Steve. And that is where I think we will end today's podcast. Thanks everybody so much for making Locked On Reds your first listen today and every day. Coming up on the next Locked On Reds podcast, we teased it a little bit. We mentioned it a little bit, but we'll have the discussion. What does the bullpen look like next year? And why the key addition to the bullpen is already in-house. Talk about that on the next Locked On Reds podcast. Make sure you join us. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, on your favorite audio podcasting platform. Literally all of them out there. We're on all of them. Check it out today. And make sure you check out for your second listen, Sully over at Locked On MLB. He's got you covered every single day, all through the playoffs. Dude's got it all when it comes to baseball. I mean, he's going to be able to link today's World Series game back to the World Series game in 1972, whenever, things happened, or 1984 or whatever. He's got a crazy knowledge. He's an encyclopedia of baseball. That's Locked On MLB. Got the link in the description of today's episode, so you don't have to go looking for it. But as far as we are concerned, Steve, what can people expect from you and me?
We're going to continue to monitor this team, listen for the rumors, break down what we're hearing, and bring all that information back here and keep you locked on Reds every single day.
2020. I want to forget that year as a whole, let alone the baseball that year.
No doubt.